There we go. We got her going now. Oh, can you see me now? Woo! We got her going. How you doing, everybody? It's the Pearlo Wisdom Show. And okay, what a crazy weekend of hockey we had there. Carolina, oh the poor. Since I got you in here, Lauren, the poor guy. Is it LaFontaine? Hey Oilers man, how you doing, buddy? LaFontaine just got lit up. College kid, been having a difficult time in college. Usually when they do things like that, CL, how you doing? Usually when they do things like that, they put a college kid in like that. It's usually sort of like an attitude adjustment. Um, could be wrong, but wow, that was it was sad to watch. It was hard to watch. It was hard for the players to watch. Just wait, I'm gonna get you up on here. It's gotten to the point where it's gotten to the point where weekends now. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because of COVID and they're being on the road. It's tougher. It's really tough for home teams. It seems they like Florida last night was struggling hard against Seattle, and Seattle looked like they had the world by the boobs. Yeah, it's a huge leap, and I think that might have been part of the reason why. Sometimes kids get, sometimes guys they get a little overconfident. You're the number one prospect for your organization, and he's been struggling in college. I could be wrong, but that it kind of seems like that's the way it was before to me. That being said, Carolina didn't play well in front of him either. And I think part of that had to do with the fact that they were trying to prop up a kid who is pretty obviously not ready to play. Um, Bastion even got 2 goals. Did he? Did he? No, he didn't get a hat trick. But that New Jersey team is looking pretty confident right now, though. That was on a back-to-back. Uh, it really came down to the fact that they had a kid sitting there playing. I don't know if he. Yeah, it is enormous. It's a lot to ask, and I hope he goes back to college now, kind of humbled and ready to work to become the best goaltender he can be. Because, uh, like I said, he hasn't been doing very well in college either this year. So I'm not really sure. That's usually the case when that happens. They kind of threw one away, hoped the team could play for him, and they did as much as they could. But there's only so much you can do when a guy's letting in goals like that. Oh, he's with the Chicago Wolves now. Now he gets down to go to the AHL. Okay, they had to. Why did they have to travel in the morning? Were they on a back to back too? I thought New Jersey was on a back to back. Let me look at that. See, there's a whole bunch of stuff I missed there. There was a whole bunch of stuff I missed there. If they were on a back to back, I should have known that. Oh, they were playing. Yeah, I guess they were. They played They played the Rangers, and then played New Jersey, and New Jersey played Carolina and then LA. I should have known that. Once that kid went in there, I should have been all over that. Oh, you live, you learn. Hey, how you doing, man? So apparently, yeah, you got to readjust to a guy you've never known play before, and there's a lot to that, Lauren, for sure. When you're playing in front of a goaltender you're not used to when he comes out to play the puck. You're not used to where he's going to pass it, if he's going to pass it, if he's going to hold it, if he's going to let it go. Hockey's such a chemistry sport that if you don't have that cohesion, then it doesn't usually work out well for you. So airport in Raleigh was closed. Oh my gosh. See, I didn't know any of that. I would have been all over New Jersey if I would have known that. Hockey news reports. So I'll try to go with guys that are in here. Yeah. Yeah, the kids it's a big eye opener to come into the NHL where they know how to shoot to get the rebounds and they're going to expose that, and New Jersey did, and New Jersey looks pretty confident right now too, so they're loose, they really have nothing to lose, all of those things put together, and Jack Hughes looks like he's kind of put the team on his back there, and they're following suit. They're following him. Carolina they'll bounce back, I'm sure. One bad game does not a season make, for sure, but that was certainly a bad game and a surprising one at that. They were up early. I think they did everything that they could do in that game, to tell you the honest truth. The Capitals and Senators played. That Senators team, man. That Senators team is playing at the right time right now. Like they play with heart, and I like them against Columbus for that reason, because I don't see that same intensity in Ottawa. That's the word for Ottawa. They play with intensity, win or lose. They play with the ultimate intensity, and that could take teams by surprise. I don't know why it would surprise anybody nowadays. Yeah, they know. Well, yeah, they know how to get rebounds, and when they're playing when they're playing a confident game, they pass a lot like Minnesota does. They pass the puck a lot. They play with a lot of speed. They go to the net, and when they do all of those things, that's a pretty hard team to beat. Um, they hadn't been doing it up until now. I could see New Jersey going on a decent run here. I'm going to be on them a little more for sure. Hockey news reports your Montreal Canadiens too. Look at that. What Primo? Primo has the night of his life there, and now he's going to be playing again tonight against Minnesota. Can he do that again? They've been grooming him for quite some time, and I think that's another case of you got nothing to lose. Well, it's two ways you can look at it, I guess. If I have a bad game, I can end up going back in the minors and do it all over again and focus on that, or just focus on the fact that you're young, you got nothing to lose, go out and play with confidence, and Devils. Well, you know what? It's funny, Eugene. If you look at their roster, they're actually New Jersey is not actually that small. They play small, and that's the problem. When they play small, they're a lot easier to beat. Any team would be, right? Like if you look at New Jersey's lineup, I'll bring it up here. You got Jimmy Vesey is 6'3". They're small up the middle with Jack Hughes, but Sharon Govich is 6'2". Pavel Zacha is 6'3", 210. You got Nathan Bastian. Michael McLeod's a big boy, but their small guys are really small, like Andreas Johansson, and they're big. Their top two centers, Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. But Nico Hischier's 6'1", 175. You just never think about it because he doesn't play that way. But they have the capabilities of playing that way. And when they do, they're pretty successful. Force everything on the perimeter and try to capitalize on rebounds. Yeah. But Minnesota, how big is Minnesota? Now that you brought that up, let's compare the two. Because I always thought of New Jersey as a small team too. But when I look at their roster, they have big guys there. They just don't play all that big. Where's Minnesota here? Minnesota, you got Zuccarello. He's just a little guy. Kaprizov. Hartman, believe it or not, is only 6 feet, 189. You do got Greenway and Foligno. They're big. And Ericsson's pretty big size. But even their smaller guys like Duhaime, Goudreau, they play a lot bigger than they are, and they play with a ton of intensity. Basically, Minnesota plays the way New Jersey wants to play. New Jersey's trying to be like Minnesota, I would say. Yeah, I think that, Lauren, that's true. New Jersey is getting settled, but I think that has a lot to do with confidence too. And these are young guys and just building up that confidence. And not only that, kind of like what Tortorella talks about, there's just a way. Having a bit of a hate for the other team. The guy I see on Jersey right now that looks like he has the confidence and intensity that you're looking for, that maybe you haven't seen in him consistently, is Bratt. Bratt is playing with a lot of confidence right now. If you're the Oilers, you give Holloway the rest of the year in Bakersfield. I would. How's Holloway doing down there in New Jersey? Because they already got him down there, right? I like to see they got McLeod up on the top line now with McDavid and Yamamoto. I think they should try that a lot more. Dylan Holloway, how's he doing? He's got 3 points in 2 games. That's good. I don't know, possibly. I think it depends on how the team is doing. Maybe if he crushes it in the AHL, maybe it's not a bad idea, at least to bring him up and give him some confidence that they believe in him. But it's hard to say because he just came off an injury. Certainly, with that in mind, it may be best for him to stay down there. What was the system that he ran? He didn't have much of a team to run a system with. I don't think the Oilers have really did. It's always been the same with them. The goal is quick movement out of the defensive zone, very quick. They've always played a long pass, or when they're playing at their best, they can play a long pass, and then just very fast movement. The problem I think, and maybe you guys probably agree, that the Oilers have is getting the puck off the stick of the opposition in the defensive zone. If you can't do that, the long pass isn't going to help you out too much, because the guys are just sitting out there by their, waiting for this long pass to happen. Meanwhile, Barry, who's hurt right now, Keith or anyone else, are sitting there fighting, trying to fight for a puck that they can't win. Oh, yeah. I think he tried that for a while, but Space Eaters kill the Oilers. Like, oh, players that are just taking up space? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Chychrun to the Rangers. I've heard about that. Apparently that they're offering that Russian kid as part of the package. I think Chychrun is almost certainly going to Florida. Florida seems to be the team I keep on hearing all the time, and the one that's most willing. See, if I'm getting Heidel, Kravtsov in a Heedle, Kravtsov in a first, I think Florida can beat that offer. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see what you mean. They can close space. Yeah. Yeah. They don't have. You're right. They don't have guys that can close space. They have they give way too much space in the defensive zone as they're coming in. Yeah, I agree with you. And the problem is they don't have defensemen that know how to do that or have been able to do that in their career. Well, Keith was not bad at it, but now that he's lost a step, he used to rely so much on his skating. When he was a Norris Trophy candidate, he could always get to pucks before he could ever get touched. And then if he was going to have to take a hit, he usually didn't, but he had a good enough stick and could get there early enough to do something with the puck before he got hit. Now the problem with Keith is he has to take the hit. He's just not because he doesn't have the legs to get to where he was before. Yeah, I was Whitetail. I was going to talk about Anaheim a bit today as well because they're in a precarious position. They've got Manson, Lindholm, contracts are coming up. They see that they're moving in the right direction, but obviously their overall lineup is not able to handle the rigors of an 82-game season yet. So the question, yeah, he needs to slow the puck, and he can do that when he has the puck on his stick. See, there's the issue, right? If he can't do that if he doesn't get the puck on his stick, and it's just the game has surpassed Keith, I think. I don't know if he's getting traded. One of the biggest question marks with me is what Anaheim is going to do now. I'm leaning that they're going to re-sign Manson and Lindholm and keep on building the way they're building. That's where I'm leaning on that. They're in a tough market to trade away guys like that and basically send a message to their players that we're not there yet. We're going to keep on picking up picks and grow and then maybe bring some more veterans in. But then if you're going to do that, do you go with the veterans you already have? Because they already know what it's a tough call. I'm thinking that they're probably going to sign based on what Anaheim has done up until now. I think if they were going to trade Manson and Lindholm, they would have already done it. If I'm Anaheim, trade Flower? Trade Flower. What do you mean? Who's Flower? Sorry if I don't. Oh, Fowler. He's got such an ironclad no trade clause. There was a time there when they were looking to trade Fowler quite a bit, and he limited their options to trade him so much that they couldn't get enough for him. So I'm thinking they're going to keep on going the way they're going. That's just unless I mean Manson should take a lesser contract. What's his contract at now? He's not what he was before. It kind of depends on what they want for a contract. What do they have? What do they have coming up? Like right now, they're playing Jacob Larson, who they sent down to the minors. Josh Mahura has never really kicked it, knocked it out of the park in the NHL. And down in the minors, they don't really have much. That is the biggest problem, I think, with Anaheim, is that there's not really all that much. Jackson Lacombe, how's he doing now? He was a second-round pick in 2019. 12 points in 24 games. He's a fairly big. He could be okay, but he's only 21 years old. Like, there's nobody there's nobody in their prospect pool on defense that I think is going to be able to, be there right away. I think they're going to try to they're going to try to short-term Manson and Lindholm. Sometimes it surprises you though that because we don't get to see how kids are doing in the minors. They got this guy Drew Hunter. I know very little about him. He had 14 points in 29 games for San Diego. He's a fairly big kid. He could be ready. He was a 6th round pick in 2018. But like I said, there's nothing there that makes me think that they have somebody to take over the roles. Manson is what? Oh, he's on COVID right now. He's 30 years old and he was making $4 million. I don't think he's in a position to command much more than that. And Hampus Lindholm, 16 points in 41 games, making $5 million. He could command a little more, and he's only 28 years old. They kind of put themselves in a weird spot. They kind of got themselves in a weird spot. They just got to hope that these young guys can keep on progressing and they can put a decent team together. But when you look at Anaheim, I don't see a team that's a contender for a while either. So adding Chychrun, I've heard their name in there. Again, because of their weak prospect pool, about the best they could offer is their first. Like, what are they going to offer? They for a team that's been rebuilding for as long as they have, I don't see a real deep prospect pool. There's Pearlo, a first this year. I don't think Arizona is going to be jumping through the hoops for Lindholm or Manson, especially since they're on expiring contracts. Steele, maybe. But when you look at in comparison to what Florida can offer, or the Rangers that we brought up here right now, what's disgusting? Well, I don't know. It depends on what you think. I've watched a lot of Arizona, and before this year, where he was playing injured all year. He was hurt this year. And then he finally just gave it up and went and got healthy and then came back. So we'll see what he does. But before this year, I thought that guy looked like he had Norris potential. He was their defense up until now. So if other general managers see what I think I see with him, I can understand why they're offering that much. But having a bad year, and the fact of the matter is, they don't have to trade him. It sounds like behind the scenes, he's kind of said, hey, you know what, maybe I don't want to go through a rebuild right now. I've been in Arizona for a while. We haven't been competitive. Maybe it's best that I move somewhere where I can be competitive for the next part of my career. But that being said, he doesn't control whether they trade him or not. So they have a lot of bargaining power right now for a guy who I know there's a lot of a lot of people out there that believe that Chychrun has possible Norris potential down the road. So that's the guy I'm hearing in the trade is Lundell. I don't think I'm not so sure Lundell has the offensive upside as Barkov, but he's a darn good player. He reminds me of the Calgary. Calgary center that they got from Carolina, actually. You would know him very well. And talking about that, there's another interesting team. The Calgary Flames. They look like they're reverting back again. That game again, the Markstrom does this every year. He comes out strong and that doesn't look very good. Sutter's teams have a tendency to do what they're doing, but Elias Lindholm is the guy. Somewhere around a point producer, one of the better, maybe better two-way than Lindholm even, but still a darn good player. Maybe Aho, actually, maybe a little less than Aho. I wouldn't trade Lundell. I don't know if I'd go that far. Like you got to look at it from Florida's perspective. They have Luostarinen in there, who is also very, very underrated as a center. That's who I think they're trying to package. I think it's going to be. I think they're trying to keep Lundell and have Luostarinen, Tippett, and a first or something like that. I think that's what they're trying to do. Luostarinen, Tippett, and a first. And because their first is so late, maybe they throw something else in there. But when you look at their roster, there's a defense spot that they're using Gudas right now in the top four, and I just don't think that's ideal. Especially when you go into the playoffs. Yeah, and Lucas Carlson, now they have some injuries here. Gustav Forsling is solidified that second left D spot. But I don't think they're really sold on putting on Radko Gudas there. So they could go like Brandon Montour, who's still a fairly young defenseman, Owen Tippett, Luostarinen, and a first. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like a lesser version of Aho. I think he could be as good defensively as Aho. I just don't think he will be as good offensively as Aho. But darn good player. Like freaking awesome player. And I'm pretty sure that if they can do it, I think Luostarinen, Montour, Tippett, and a first should, and maybe even get another piece back from Arizona. That should do it. That should do it. If I'm Arizona, I'm looking at that deal because I really like Luostarinen. So I'm looking at that deal and going, you know what? We get a second line center, a young second line center. We get Tippett's got an incredible shot. He's going to be much better as he gets older than he is right now. But those kind of shooters are very hard to find, and Florida's got lots of them. And when they picked up Reinhart, it sort of told me that, it kind of took that spot away from Tippett. And I don't even know if it's really all that fair for him that he stays there. Oh, JP, how you doing, buddy? We've won against Capitals once. What do they? What they need to fix tonight is get more people in the lineup. That's it. Without Stone and Pacioretty, it's just taking a toll on that team. I'm not huge on the Capitals still this year. I think that they could, but I think the Capitals might take that game. And of course, Lehner still hasn't been what they wanted him to be. But right now, it's just like Vegas is playing a lot of players in their top 6 that you don't want to be playing in your top 6. To me, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest problem with Vegas right now. You're going to be playing William Carrier up in the top line today with Stevenson and Dadonov. You keep the Marchessault, Carlson, Smith, Janmark, Roy, and Kolasar is a good third line. They could expose Washington that way because Washington's third line right now is not very good. But their top 6 is just getting devastated with injuries right now. With injuries and Pacioretty being out. Stone, I guess, I heard, is Stone, Stone is on COVID protocol. You take those 2 guys out of the lineup and just like any team, really, you take out your top 2 players pretty much and see how they're going to do, right? So, oh, Pacioretty might play tonight? Oh, if Pacioretty might play tonight, then I haven't heard that he's going to. It doesn't show that he's going to. But if he can play tonight, maybe they got a much better chance. But I think that's basically the problem is they got a lot of guys that are playing way more minutes than they're used to. And it's not having Stone and Pacioretty. I don't know. There's something about that team. They bring an energy to that team that is pretty hard to simulate when they're on the ice. A confidence, belief in themselves. And if Vegas is missing anything right now, I think it's that. Carlson's doing about as good a job as he can. And you got to and now Carlson is getting focused on a lot that his numbers are down because you can focus on that line and the other lines, you can take care of. But the other teams are being able to focus so heavy on that Carlson line that it's really hurting their production. That line really is a line that usually beats up on the lower lines. So now they got to be the line, and it's tough. Yeah, they do. It's funny, Hajin, you bring that up. That's a really good point. The Colorado playing a very offensive game. They got forwards coming up and playing as wingers a lot. But I find that the thing that kind of with Colorado is that it's like it's almost like what Tampa Bay was last year. They just don't seem to put the pedal down. They seem to be kind of floating through games right now, and barely winning a lot. I have a feeling that Bednar is a little bit frustrated with that team. But you're right. They are playing a very almost 80s type way of playing where basically the defense is active all the time. Part of the reason why they do that is they can get away with it. I mean, if Makar gets caught down the ice a bit, he's got the speed to get back. Taves pretty much does. They can get away with it a little bit. But the issue I have is that I have with Colorado right now is that they're playing way too perimeter. It's going to come back and bite them in the butt eventually. It certainly will in the playoffs. If they try to play like that in the playoffs, they're going to get ruined. But they've got so much talent right now. I think they're relying on that so much that too much, as far as I'm concerned. But then I said that about Tampa Bay, and then Tampa Bay went off and won a cup, right? Like the game now, again, they also got some pretty hot goaltending too. And they played against Colorado, or they played against, what was it, Montreal? Well, they played against Montreal. That was on Saturday. Look at the box score here. I believe they terribly outshot them. Yeah, 46-30. But it was a fairly passive game. That's the word I'm looking for. I found that Colorado was playing a fairly passive game. Yeah, you don't see the Colorado could use their dump and chase a lot more, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, they have one speed or they have one type of play that works, right? Hajin and Lauren, they seem to have one type of way of winning, and if that's not working, they get frustrated. Can't adjust. I guess it's a growing team, but you brought two really good teams up there that certainly are able to do that in Tampa Bay and Carolina. I mean, to me, Tampa Bay and Carolina are the even more than Florida. Florida's sort of like that too. If you notice, Florida on the road gets in trouble. I don't know why they would want Ristolainen, but if they want him, go ahead and get him, I guess. But that would be a bad move. Yeah, I was saying that. I don't know. Sprinkle, is it 28-1 now? Sprinkle a little bit on Nashville because they play that playoff type game that could surprise the crap out of teams. For sure. Why not? Let's look at who they would play first. There's a good example. You brought up Colorado. If Colorado had to play Nashville right now, I would not be surprised if Nashville won that series at all. Well, yeah, I think Colorado has the capability of having just as good a defense as Carolina. They just haven't put it together to do so. Jonathan Toews is a fantastic defensive defenseman. Makar, for all of his roving, gets back really, really well. I mean, I don't even mind that guy. It's Jack Johnson and the Johnsons and stuff like that. I find that those guys are playing outside of their skill set a little bit too much, and they could be playing, but it's a system thing too. They're just going balls out, playing a really offensive system that I think is still fine if you're adding physicality to it, but Colorado's not. The guy that does that is Kadri, and he's playing insane right now. Yeah, exactly. Why not? Zero cup winners in Colorado. Good point, Eugene. There are zero cup winners in Colorado. They definitely could use some people with that playoff attitude. and way of playing, a battle. That's the word. Colorado doesn't have the battle, and I think McKinnon does. But overall, as a team, I just don't see a team that battles. Like, if you took half the battle of Nashville and put it in Colorado, that team would be scary as hell. But I wanted to get to Florida. If you notice, Florida is having a lot of difficulties on the road for that very reason. When they're at home, they have that ice advantage, and they can play their ultra aggressive forechecking game and keep the other team pegged in. But when they got to play, when they got to be the ones on the defense a little bit more on the road, they seem to struggle quite a bit. When they beat Edmonton, they didn't deserve to. Calgary, they won that game and they shouldn't have. And then by the time they got to Seattle, when you do the time changes and all of that, I know that I'm going to probably be on Winnipeg when they go to Winnipeg. He does, but he hasn't been doing that. He seems to have cleaned up that part of his game this year. He's probably been the best. He might be the best Colorado forward they have so far right now. And a lot of that might have to do with the fact that, you know, teams have to pay so much attention to McKinnon that he gets a lot more open ice that way. I don't think the Islanders are going to sell off. Maybe they should, but they probably won't. Well, and great point, Doug. We brought this up before. Doug and I both are Cappers. In case you don't know Doug Masta, by the way. Doug is from Detroit. He's a Detroit fan. I've known him for quite a long time. We talk outside of and by the way, any of you guys, you want to talk outside of this stream, just let me know. I could start a group and we could talk during games and stuff like that. Maybe like a phone messaging group. But Doug and I talk about it, and I gotta say it, man. It seems to me that call this a conspiracy if you want, I guess. I don't know, but this year, since they brought in online betting, as they've embraced betting and the gambling aspect of the sport, I'm seeing favorites not getting calls all the time. Colorado's a good example. It's happening all the time. It seems like they're evening up the games. I think your best bet right now, when looking at games, stay away from any -1.5s at all, because if a team gets up, all of a sudden there's calls, and you're like, really, that was a call now all of a sudden. It's almost unignorable. It's hard to actually say that's happening, but it sure seems like it's happening. Like this last Sunday, especially on Sundays. Sundays are usually tougher for home teams. This last Sunday, if you look at it, if you would have took the first of all, if you would have just took the dog, you would have been fine. But if you would have took the dog PL in every game, I'm pretty sure you would have hit. And it's hard to get your head around that. It's hard to make that adjustment. John Whitehill's keeping on scrambling and looking for defensemen for the Leafs. Maybe. New Jersey, though, I still think they got this idea that they can go on a run. Picks are 7% higher. yeah, it just doesn't. It seems this year that to try to get a -1.5 is like next to impossible. I had one on the Tampa game there against San Jose a little while after they basically did nothing against Anaheim. You know, occasional places, but um, I don't know. And then there's just been goaltenders going off this year. Primo in that game against Montreal just goes off. Dell in Buffalo all of a sudden has a resurgence in his career, and he's knocking it out of the park. I mean, there's spots where goaltenders just seem to be on a high right now, and shooters seem to be pretty tight with their sticks. I can't put my finger on why. Like, especially really, really good teams, they're not getting it up high. Look at Arizona when you play Vejmelka. Vejmelka leaves the top part of the ice, or top part of the net, all the time. He leaves it open all the time. All you got to do is wait him out a little bit, top. Wait him out a little bit, top. And you would think, okay, maybe it's your first time playing, you've never seen the guy before, whatever. But do they not look at tape on this guy? Like, you got to be prepared for goaltenders this year. It seems like the video, whoever is doing the video for teams is dropping the ball lots. Who's going to take Peter Mrazek? I don't know what team would take Peter Mrazek. Probably the Oilers, maybe. I'll be right back, guys. Just wait. Sorry about that. Lindgren and Husso I think Husso is, I'm not sure about Lindgren. I need to see him a little bit more. St. Louis has something going on there, right? Binnington's attitude has been a problem ever since he was young. That's the reason why it took him so long to get in the league. He's a very arrogant dude. If you remember when Allen left Montreal, like, he basically, well, let's just say he didn't have very many nice things to say about Jordan Binnington. And Husso is the better goaltender right now. Is it a controversy? I don't know. You got a very high-paid goaltender. A lot of teams are looking for goaltenders out there. I wonder if the Oilers would want to have an arrogant kid like that as a goaltender, but at least he can stop pucks. I mean, I think right now Husso projects to be a better goaltender than Binnington. Maybe Lindgren would probably be better than anything the Oilers have right now. Jari and Hellebuck. Yeah, Hollebuck was on a back-to-back, and I freaking that game was great, Doug. They were stopping pucks left, right, and center. Hollebuck was on a back-to-back, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but if I remember correctly, Hollebuck wins a high percentage of games. He loves to be played back-to-back. He wants to be played back-to-back, and which means he's like, it would seem to me, he's like one of those goaltenders that you got to challenge him a lot. If he doesn't feel challenged, he doesn't play as well. He's super competitive, yeah. He gets emotional, yeah, for sure, Doug. I from what I understand, Lauren, about Klingberg going to Carolina, it just basically had to do with the injury situation there. You know as well as I do, Cole and Smith are not really the answer in the 5-6 spot there. They're starting to realize that as much as I like that D'Angelo signing for $1 million, he's pretty poor defensively. Klingberg isn't much better, though. I think this is what I think that conversation was about. They want some defensive depth. They're not going to re-sign Niederreiter. So they called to say, you know, would you consider Niederreiter for Klingberg? Bear has been scratched, yeah. That's odd. Do you think Bear is better than Smith or Cole? I think so. I'm starting to wonder if because there was a lot of talk about attitude here in Edmonton, complaining, whining, stuff like that. And if he's doing that in Carolina, Brendamore's not going to play him. You know that as well as I do. If he's whining and complaining and stuff like that, Brendamore's not going to play him for sure. Yeah, on offense, yeah. Defense, you don't think so? Well, the thing about Bear is he's good defensively, but he can make some very deflating moves outside of his own zone at times. He's a weird player. I would take him back in Edmonton in a heartbeat because he was one of the few guys that could take a puck off a stick when he needed to. Not like he wasn't great at it, but he could do it where Edmonton doesn't have anybody. The problem was that he did make some bonehead passes out of his own. And those hurt a team. Like, I think overall he's pretty good defensively, but those, like Yandel would do that a lot. And, you know, just Barry does it all the time. But he makes those boneheaded, and that can really hurt the energy of a game. And that's what I think analytics don't really pinpoint that, okay, yeah, his overall analytics, possession, and, you know, expected offense and expected defense look good. But when there's when you can fairly consistently make one of those passes out of the zone, it hurts. It hurts a team quite a bit. It hurts a team in that game quite a bit. It hurts the morale of players. You're fighting hard, you're playing hard, and you make that one stupid move, and you could play well the rest of the game, or even in the game, but that one stupid move can change the whole energy of a game. And then the team ends up losing, and you look at his analytics and you say, wow, he played pretty well. But that one poor decision, affected the whole energy of the whole team for the rest of the team. That's the thing that I think that defensive and offensive analytics doesn't really take into account, is there are some things that one player can affect the game for other players a lot. It's like a guy like Sherratt in Montreal. His analytics aren't that great. But what Sherratt does is he softens the team up for the rest of the team, so the rest of the team can play well. And yeah, he's not very good at moving the puck out. He's got to play with a puck possession guy. He's not bad at stripping the puck, but he can really soften up the other team. He's a big guy. He hits. He does move the crease out fairly well. But you gotta play a guy with him that can move the puck, or you're in big trouble with Sherratt. He does turn the puck over, yeah, and that's really hard on a team. Keith Yandle in his best days wasn't that bad defensively. In fact, he was a pretty good possession driver, but he used to make those decisions. He used to make decisions with the puck like that in Arizona, and you could just see the whole team get deflated after that, and then they would end up losing the game. But if you looked at this analytics at the end of the game, they look fine. So, and then going back to Klingberg has a tendency to do that too. So, his defensive stats aren't that great. So somebody's going to overpay for Klingberg, I think. I'm not a huge Klingberg supporter. I wasn't before. I was talking about trading him last year before he got to this point. When his numbers were up, I think he's better than a guy like Barry and stuff like that. But I don't think you really want to be playing him certainly in a top 2 role or anything like that. And a team that's looking for more offense from their defense, I think, is going to end up, if they decide to trade him, overpaying him a little bit. And then there's also the red flag that you're asking for a trade in a contract year while your team is going for the playoffs. To me, that's just a bad attitude. That's just a bad attitude for me. You don't mind Sherratt, but and you know what, Hajin, that's so true. I think a first is too much for Sherratt, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna get a first for him, a first or 2 seconds, from a team that's looking to get bigger and looking to make a run in the playoffs. The thing is he's a great playoff guy for softening a team in a 7-game series. And I think it's going to be a late first, but I'm pretty sure there's a team out there that's going to give him a first. I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe the Rangers. I've heard the Rangers. I've heard Florida's name. Of course, if they're in on Chychrun, then that won't be the case, but Oh, is he going to be that good? I have seen him. I don't know how well it's going to translate into the NHL, but honestly, I haven't seen him enough, Nikishin, to really have to really have an opinion on him. Nikishin prospects. Alexander Nikishin, 2020. He's 20 years old, plays in Russia. 12 points in 46 games in the KHL. That's pretty good. Yeah, I would say he's probably pretty good if they're playing him enough that he gets 12 points in that many games in the KHL. That looks like he's going to be a pretty good player for sure. Yeah, John. Klingberg, yeah, he's not great. I wouldn't put him in very bad category, but he's not a very good defensive player for sure. If somebody's getting Klingberg, they're getting him for his offense. And you got to really hope that you have the right partner to play him with as well. I've heard the Capitals were interested. Maybe he can play with Orlov. A team like Nashville can get a guy like that and help him defensively and become a better player. But I think it's going to be a tough trade deadline this year because I think most of the league knows that there's about 3 or 4 teams that have a chance this year. And of course, Florida. Florida's been in on pretty much every defenseman out there. I've heard him anyways. He's better than Barry. Klingberg is better than Barry. Will they have who's that? Who are you asking, J-Pun? He's playing for Russia in the Olympics, so I guess so. He's putting up those kind of numbers as a kid. I would definitely throw him in. That's really good numbers for the KHL for a kid, for a 20-year-old. KHL is not a league that usually plays their young players that many minutes. So Gavrikov, you think Colorado's going to trade Gavrikov though? Sanheim, maybe. You could probably have Sanheim. Yeah, well, the Golden Knights will play 11 games this month. Oh, how many wins and how many losses? That's tough. Like I said, they played 11 games this month. And they're on their 8th. And they got 4 more to go. I'd have to see who they're playing for one. That's a tough stretch. 11 games in 30 days. So they got Capitals now, Carolina tomorrow. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Wow. The good thing is they got Florida coming back from a long road trip. But they're not likely going to beat Tampa Bay. And man, they're going to have one heck of a time against Carolina. It doesn't look good, dude. Florida's really good at home, though, but they are coming off a long road trip. And then Buffalo. Their last game is in Buffalo. They should have that. That's a tough stretch, man. That's a tough stretch. I don't know. Tonight's the big game for them. If they can win against Capitals tonight, then they got Carolina on a back-to-back. They're probably going to be playing Thompson or something like that tomorrow. Ouch. They might be able to get Florida, like I said, but because Florida's playing their first game back off of a long road trip. But they're playing 3 of 4 on the road. That is a tough stretch, man. I think Vegas better hope everybody's healthy after the break, and then they can make it go. Because I don't think they're winning too many now without, if Pacioretty's in the lineup tonight, they might have a chance. Tonight's the one. I think Washington's on a soft spot right now. Hopefully, are they going to put Samsonov in? I haven't checked for a while here, so. Oh, they're putting Vanacek in. It would have been nice if they were putting Samsonov in, but apparently it looks like they're running with Vanacek right now in Washington. Samsonov has just been absolutely brutal this year. I don't think the Leafs are good enough to beat Tampa in the playoffs, no. Is there any more news? Canucks. Oh yeah, Canucks are JT Miller is still out there. I think they're going to sign him. They're thinking that they could keep Miller throughout this year. I don't know. I think they got to resign him, or they got to keep him. The Canucks are in a pretty tough spot too. They're playing really well right now, but Rutherford did say that he was going to be trading some veterans away at the deadline. He said that himself. He said that their team's not deep enough. So I think as well as they've been doing, I still think JT Miller is probably going to be traded. So yeah, I don't know. He wasn't. I don't think the Rangers are going to go back to a player that they already had before. I mean, okay. I don't think they're beating Carolina tomorrow. I think they have a chance against Washington tonight. A good chance. So let's say they win tonight. They're not beating Carolina tomorrow. I doubt it very much. Florida, let's say that Florida's lethargic after that long road trip and they take one there. Then they lose to Tampa Bay and they manage to pull one out against Buffalo, which will be at the end of a very long road trip. I think the best case scenario is they get today, Florida, and Buffalo. So 3 more wins. What does that do? That's the best case. So, do I predict that? It's hard to. This year is really hard to predict to begin with. Honestly, I predict that they don't win tomorrow. I'll say they get 2 more wins. Two more wins. That's what I predict for them. But JT Miller now, if they make him available, that's the kind of guy. That's the kind of guy that can change a team big time. Like that. That's JT Miller. The way he's playing right now could be one of those difference makers at the deadline for a team out there that's looking for depth up the middle. His value though is weird. What's Vancouver? I think he's on a $5 million contract. He's on COVID right now, yeah. He's got 2 more years at $5 million. And his prorated salary is $2.7 million, which will be about 2.5 at the deadline. Just trying to think of a team that might do something like that. Minnesota is the one you think about right away, but I just don't see them going for it. I see them sticking with what they got and just seeing what happens. If the New York Islanders were in it, I think they would be possibly in that conversation. Weird. Here's a second line center that could really make a difference on a team that's in it. I think, but really not a spot for him out of all the top teams because they're also deep up the middle. I think Vancouver's just going to. I don't think Vancouver's going to trade him. I don't think there's enough of a market out there for them to get enough for him to trade him at the deadline. I really don't. Should Boston go all in and trade Lysell and Swayman? That's a really good question. There's a guy there. You just mentioned it, Boston. JT Miller. That would be the team. Well, I don't think they're going to trade Lysell and Swayman. Swayman's really hard to trade. I mean, Rask, well, he hasn't showed well right now. He looks still a little rusty, but he probably isn't going to be around for too long. I think Boston's going to let Ullmark and Swayman fight it out. I don't see that, but Lysell, maybe. Lysell for JT Miller or something like that. But I think they would have to give up DeBrusk and Lysell for JT Miller. I think I would do that. I mean, I don't know where Boston's going, but if they're not going to be trading Bergeron or anything like that in the next little while, they've got 2 choices. They have to either become a contender or they got to start trading off pieces. And it doesn't appear to me that they're going to trade off pieces. So, yeah, that would be the team. Boston would be the team for me for JT Miller for sure. would make them more of a contender than they are. But even if, let's say they make that move, do you think they really, really, really still are going to be able to beat Carolina and Tampa Bay in the East? And that's the problem I have with Boston, is that they're really good, but they're not really, really, really good. And which puts them on the lower tier of possibilities to winning a cup. Even if they make that move for JT Miller, I still don't know if they have it. He has played really bad lately, yes. I don't really want to touch that game. Maybe an over. Boston can beat Carolina. Well, I don't think they can beat Carolina and Tampa Bay. They might be able to take one out, but after that, I don't see them taking the other one out. You know what I mean? Not with the defense that they have. They got to get some major good goaltending. And Rask, we'll see. If Rask can play lights out like he once was before, then yeah, maybe. I guess any team can. Look at what Montreal did last year with Price. And I think that's what Boston thinks. That, it's one of those once you're in it, you never know type things. But they are sort of in that place of being once you're in it, you never know. However, if they're going to do it, if they're going to give her a good go, getting JT Miller would be like JT Miller and Taylor Hall would be a great combination. JT Miller is one of the few shoot first defense centers in the league, and Hall is a great passer. You could keep that big line split up, and have Pasternak, JT Miller, and Hall, and then Smith, Marchand, and Bergeron, and then Coyle goes down into to that third line. You wouldn't have DeBrusk because you would have traded him. We would have traded him. Boston's got some cap space too. What would that do? It'd be, Charlie Coyle, then Oscar Steen, who I really like. And then Eric Holla would have to go to the wing. Eric Holla could go to the wing with Charlie Coyle and Oscar Steen. And then you got Foligno, Nosek, and Lazar. Then, like you said, maybe add one more defenseman and give it a go. Yeah. Vegas is hard to say what they have to fix because I think most of it just has to do with the people that are coming and how that's going to work. You got Eichel coming, you get everybody in the lineup, and that team is pretty freaking good. Yeah, I love Marchand, but it just seems like it just seems short of getting like a Chychrun. If Boston could get Chychrun, but I don't think they got the pieces to do that. It just seems like Boston's that one tier lower than, hey, Oilers Highlights, how you doing, buddy? Welcome. We were just talking about the Boston Bruins and what they could do to improve their team. JT Miller would be the guy that if Vancouver is going to do what Rutherford said and move on from some veterans, that would mean that JT Miller is probably one of those people. And then, yeah, there you go, Weichel. But I mean, you got Cap to be concerned about. That's the thing. If they go get JT Miller and they include DeBrus, that goes dollar for dollar almost. And then they go out and get Klingberg. They definitely could use a player like Klingberg, I suppose, to play along Carlo. You got a pretty solid team. Maybe they might be able to do it then. I don't know how that all affects the chemistry and all that stuff like that, but on paper, they're probably pretty good. Yeah, Klingberg and Carlo could work. That's just like it's like we're twins, Sajin. Klingberg and Carlo could work. If there's a guy, and we saw Boston last year is not afraid to do something like that. They're not afraid to go out and get, people at the deadline. They've shown it over and over again. They went and got Hall. Remember when they got Iggy? They got Iginla. They've shown that they're willing to fill those to trade to get those pieces. So I think that's what they're going to end up doing. It's just going by their history. And the fact that they're talking about re-signing Bergeron, Marchand's still fairly young. Pasternak is still fairly young. I think that's what they're going to do. And I could see them going and getting JT Miller and Klingberg. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, honestly, if they really want to go for it, if they want to put themselves in the best position to take out a Tampa Bay, those two moves would be about the best they could do this year to do that. Do I think it's good enough? Yeah. It gives them a chance. I was saying that JT Miller, they could trade Lysell, their first round draft pick last year, and DeBrusque for JT Miller. And maybe, a guy like, maybe they could throw another piece in there that a B-level guy. I guess it would completely depend on who else is in, but honestly, I don't see too many teams that are going to be in on it. And that's why I think it's possible that Vancouver just says, no, I'll wait till the offseason when you got more options. He's got 2 years on his contract, so they could wait till the summer when more teams have cap space and, the playoffs are over and you got teams like Dallas that have to make decisions there. You're going to have teams that lose players to free agency that are centers, and you got Columbus Blue Jackets who desperately need a center that probably wouldn't trade for JT Miller at this deadline. It doesn't make much sense. They would probably rather keep that pick and explore free agency and see what they could get it that way, because Columbus really wants to build through the draft since they have the drafting guru in Kekalainen. He could be traded this week. I think they'll go down to the deadline when they make that trade. Chychrun. They don't even have to trade him at the deadline. That's it. They have so much leverage in Florida with Chychrun. That's what kind of brings his value up. There's going to be a lot of teams that want him, and they don't have to trade him if they don't want to. So, and he's on a great contract. He's only 23 years old, and many feel that he's got Norris potential in his future. So let's check out The Athletic. What does it have to say? Do we even want to talk about that whole Subban thing? The guy in the EHL that did what apparently was a racist comment, a racist thing. He says that he was. I looked at the tape. What he says that happened there, the guy who did it, I think that's what he could have been doing. That's all I'm going to say about that. I think the guy's getting run over the coals. I mean, if he did do it, I suppose it's a terrible thing to do. But I think very well he could be just saying, oh, big tough guy. And that's all he was doing. And the optics were worse than it was. Is it possible he was doing that? Like, it looks like something, but what was his actual intent? I don't know. Like, that's the thing about that. I think he could have been not doing what he was doing. So I think the league has a difficult problem there. If he decides to pull out a lawsuit or something, they could be in big trouble on that one, to say the least. If he can prove that he wasn't making any racist comments or anything like that, or if he was saying, "Oh, you're such a big guy," because he works out a lot, big strong guy, but when it comes right down to it, you don't do anything. You're all talk. If that's what he was actually doing and saying at that time, they just absolutely destroyed this guy, his character, on false pretense. If I'm him, I sue. But was it though? Was it, Lauren? Was it bigotry? I agree with you, no doubt about it. If it was, then great. But if he claims, did you hear what his side of the story is? He claims that he was saying, "Oh, you're such a big guy," and going like this, like, "Oh, you're so tough," and it looked like he was making the gorilla thing, but in actuality, he was just saying that. Now, if he can prove that he was just saying that, and the league basically shunned him and put him aside and did everything like that and decimated his character, that guy can sue till oh my gosh, they'll get destroyed. They'll get destroyed. I don't know if you saw his what he said, what his side of the story was. He did an open thing on it. And I'm not going to sit here and try to say he's lying or not lying or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to say that. But he could be just saying that now to cover himself up. He could, I guess. But if he can prove that that's what it was that he was doing, and they slandered him like that, yeah, the ECHL. He could sue the ECHL. In fact, he could even go further than that, because he could sue Sportsnet. He could sue these media places that slandered him and everything. He could sue the heck out of them. So that's going to be very interesting, because I think if that is the case and he can prove that his words were what he said they were, "Oh, you're such a tough guy," and all that, there's going to be a lawsuit. Well, it was great, except I was so silly to think that Florida was going to win that game. Their end of that Western road trip, I know Seattle's not a great team, but they were tired. Florida was definitely tired. They didn't have their legs, and if Florida doesn't have their legs, they're not that great of a team, which was why I'm a little, when it comes playoff time, I don't think I'm back in Florida. They don't seem like a team that can play well tired. They're showing it over and over again on the road. Like their road record is less than 500 now. And honestly, they didn't really have much business beating Edmonton or Calgary on that road trip. They were outplayed. I saw the video too. I saw a guy go like this. Oh, you're so, and could that be, oh, you're so tough? Sure. I didn't hear the words he was saying on the ice. He claims that the words he was saying on the ice is, oh, you're so tough. And then when it comes right down to it, you're all talk, talk, talk. That's what his claims are. Now, there's a referee on the ice there that heard what he said, had to have heard what he said. And if he did say that and made that gesture, he's got a really good case in a court that his intent was not to make a racist gesture. I'm just saying that. Did I see that Kraken player injured? I got kind of fed up with that game and stopped watching. Wait a sec. What was that one? Who was it that got injured again? I think I did see that. Let's look up the Seattle Kraken here. Was it Carson Soucy? That must have been Carson Soucy. No, I'm not sure. Did he play last night? I'll be able to tell whenever my computer speeds up here. By the ice time, probably. That must have been Carson Soucy. No, I'm not sure what happened. He only played 4 minutes. Yeah, well, I mean, if the fans, I mean, this is 2022. If you're still having, a heart like that towards people, then I don't know what to say. And if he actually did do that gesture with that in his, if he can't prove he said what he said or whatever, then, I mean, I don't know what to do. It's just so unfortunate that we ever lived in a world like that. That you would say thing like, yeah, if you got fans in there that are yelling that stuff, that's just mind blowing in this day and age that people think that way. And I really don't think that, giving people 30-game suspensions is going to change the heart of people. I think we just need to, I think people just need to live their lives that are like black or whatever. And we back them up. And, let's not get hurt by people that are obviously in a bad space in their life to think like that about other people. You got to be in a pretty brutal headspace to think like that about people that are a color or something like that. Like, I don't know. It's going to go away. I don't think it's going to go away by giving people 30 game suspensions, because obviously it's still there. Giving retribution like that about what people say. It's going to go away when we simply treat each other like human beings, and those people that don't do that just look so stupid when they do it. I don't know what happened with that guy. If he's telling the truth, then I really hope he does do something to you know, I hope it comes out. If he's not telling the truth, I mean, I feel for the guy outside of the fact that he has a 30 game suspension, because it sucks living a life like that. That's all I got to say about that. Edmonton wants to keep. Well, that's what they're saying right now. I mean, the Edmonton Oilers beat Calgary, but the very guy that they've been vilifying up until now, Koskinen, is the reason why they won that game. They had no business winning that game. And defense was the problem. It still has been the problem. It's not going to stop being the problem. And the guys that they're talking about bringing in instead of Koskinen, like Holtby, Korpisalo, what are some of the other guys that they're looking at? Hudobin. That's not going to help that situation any much more than what they've already got, to tell you the honest truth. That the problem is their defense, and that's it. And until I hear Holland say we have a problem with our defensemen, or Tippett say we have a problem with our defensemen, what I've heard Tippett say is the team needs to be harder on the stick, and they're relying too much on their power play, and they're not playing strong enough in the defensive end, which I agree. But I don't think anything's ever going to change until the organization says the defensemen that we acquired to play on the ice are not a group of defensemen that are capable of winning games consistently. Until they actually, either behind closed doors or something, admit to themselves that Duncan Keith, Barry, Ceci, these guys that they assembled are not a good mix and should never have thought of being a good mix from the beginning, that team is going to keep on spinning its wheels. The only chance that they're going to get better is if they get a guy like Fleury. If you're going to have a defense like that, you better have a guy that can stop pucks all day long, like just freaking insane. Do I think Hudobin has shown, that he can do that for short spurts? Holtby really hasn't shown he can do that for a long time. Korpisalo hasn't. His best years were when they were playing Tortorella type shutdown defensive system. Do you think he's gonna be able to succeed in an Oilers team that plays the way they do? I don't. As far as I'm concerned, I could be proven wrong, but I don't think the Oilers go anywhere until they find a home for Barry and they bring in some shutdown defensemen there that can play. They can get a puck off a stick, and I would even go with Ben Sherrod on that. I mean, he's not the best guy out there, but he's way the hell better than what they already got. Duncan Keith should not be in the NHL. I agree. At the very least, he should be maybe a 5, 6, 7 defenseman, a 7 defenseman. A guy that comes in and plays half the games. Something like that. Help out on the power play a bit, kind of guy like that. I mean, when Tippett said that, one of the big reasons why they were bringing Duncan Keith in was to help in the room. He had cups and stuff like that, and they got a young player. Oh, I mean, all that's great. But not someone like Keith who's going to play a regular. If Keith was making $1 million a year and he was in the room a lot and playing half the games, cool. But with where he is right now, yeah, Josh Manson would be all right. He's kind of gone downhill quite a bit. There's the other thing is I don't know what the answer is anymore. And the bad thing with Edmonton is, unfortunately, Duncan Keith was probably a grasping at straws play because they couldn't get anybody. They couldn't get anybody. He was the only guy that would come to Edmonton. So they basically had no leverage and did what they did. That's what I think is very possible that happened there, if I'm going to back up Holland at all. And then when Larson decided he didn't want to be there because they gave him more money and more term, then they give Barry that money. You say, well, they should have got somebody else. But what if there is nobody else? What if there is nobody else? What if there is nobody out there you could get? I'm just trying to think, okay, let's look at some players that are out there that they could get. Chicago Blackhawks have come out and said that the only untouchables are Kane, Taves, and Jones. And people are like, well, Kane and Taves, why are they untouchable? They're untouchable because they've made it pretty clear that they're going to retire in Chicago, or they basically have nixed their no trade clauses. I believe that's the case. But what about Connor Murphy? Connor Murphy would be the guy I'd be identifying as a guy that I want to bring in. Now, let's say you want Connor Murphy. He's from Dublin, Ohio. By the way, watch out for Columbus if he's from Dublin, Ohio. Because Columbus, I believe, have made a point of trying to bring in guys from Columbus so they don't lose them like the previous guys that they've had. But let's say they are. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. You call up his agent and say, look, we would like you here in Edmonton. What would you think about signing a long-term contract? And he tells his agent, I don't want to go to Edmonton. Yeah, Whitechoke Connor Murphy, yeah. He tells his agent, I don't want to live in Edmonton for various reasons. First of all, he's from the United States. He may not want to live in Canada. Second of all, nobody seems to want to go to Edmonton. What do you do? You have very little leverage. Are you going to throw a second round pick at Connor Murphy that you could use to get a guy that may be happy to live in Edmonton? Or are you going to do that deal? So if he says no, you can throw him out. Because I don't want to. He's probably going to cost a first to someone or a second at least. Let's say the Philadelphia Flyers decide to sell off. Somebody mentioned Sanheim. Sanheim, I think, would play well in this system. He's from Manitoba. There you go. What's he making? He's got 2 more years on his contract. Now, I don't know if the Philadelphia Flyers are thinking about moving a guy like Sanheim, but Sanheim is from Manitoba, which is right beside Edmonton. Manitoba is right beside Alberta. And, it wouldn't be far from home. He's in Canada. Maybe that's a possibility. So you call up Philadelphia and you say, hey, are you looking to trade Sanheim? And they're like, well, he's 25 years old. We're contemplating a rebuild. We think he might fit in well we might be able to re-sign him. you know, what are you talking about an offer? What are you going to give for an offer? If you ask for a second round pick for Sanheim, I don't know. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm like, I don't know. A second round pick. But then we got to replace him anyways. He likes it here. Maybe that's not a big deal. Do you give up a first for 2 years of Sanheim? Maybe you do. Apparently not Holland, but although that's a deal I would do. If I call up Sanheim's agent and say, how would you like to come home close to home here in Edmonton? We got a good thing going here with McDavid and everybody like that. We just need some puck-moving defensemen, some good defensemen. Sanheim isn't terrible in his defense. He's certainly better than what they already have. And he wants to stay there. And he consider signing for a long-term deal. All of those things like that. Maybe something like that's possible. Yeah, Kulak's not a great defender, yeah. I don't think Kulak's moving the needle up too high as far as defensemen that would go to the Edmonton Oilers. They really need a significant boost. So there we go. We called Philadelphia. Sanheim is a possibility. He's 6'3". He's big. I'm sure they would consider it. Other sellers, you got the Seattle Kraken. They're probably going to be sellers. You're not getting Adam Larson. I already mentioned Carson Soucy as a possibility. He's from Viking, Alberta. I'm not giving up more than you give up a second round pick for him. Yeah, I'd do that. Carson Soucy. He's only 27 years old. He's from Viking, Alberta. He can strip a puck off pretty darn good. He's good. He's good. He's pretty good in his own zone. He can bring some pain. A second round pick is probably an overpay, but for the Edmonton Oilers who can't get people to come there, that's the problem, is they end up having to overpay a lot. Jamie getting traded from Jamie who? Are you talking about Jeremy Lauzon? Jamie who? What about Vince Dunn? Jamie who? I think there's going to be a lot of players traded from Seattle, though, I do. I think they know it too. And actually, the way they played last night, it's almost like the coach has said, hey, why don't you just go out there and have fun? We know a lot of you are going to get traded. But when it comes right down to it, it's about having fun. Jamie Alexia? No. No, I don't think Alexiak's getting traded from Seattle. They sign him. Usually when a team signs a guy to a long-term deal like that, same as Larson, there is a verbal agreement that we're not trading you away. Now, maybe the only way that's possible is if they didn't make any agreement like that. They signed Alexiak up and then went, and basically Alexiak is like, okay, I could get traded, but that's a lot. That's more money than anybody else is offering me, so I'm going to take it, and if I get traded, I get traded. Was there a no movement clause in that deal? Jamie Alexiak, that's who you're talking about. Usually they sign there because they don't want to move. Alexiak. Oh yeah, he's injured right now. Yeah, he's got a full no. He's got a full no trade clause right now. 16 team no trade list. So it's not impossible, but usually when you sign players like that, you made verbal agreements that you're not going to trade them away unless they ask. It doesn't look good to sign a player to a long-term contract and then trade them away, unless it was sort of understood beforehand that, hey, you know what? If things go south, we may be trading you away, but we'll give you a contract with 2 or 3 years more than anybody else is asking for to compensate for the fact that we might trade you away. If that's the case, then that's a good move by Ron Francis. If Ron Francis was able to sign Jamie Alexiak with the understanding that it wasn't guaranteed that he was going to stay in Seattle, and he paid for a couple of years, and then, the player's like, okay, I may be traded, but I got 6 years at $5 million, and other teams are only willing to offer me 4 or 3, then it's fair. It's okay. You're not ticking off anybody. He leaves the organization, and you were honest. Gave him all the, he's happy. He makes his money, and he goes off somewhere else. But usually in those situations when a player signs like that, there's pretty much an agreement that, we're not going to move your family anywhere else after this. That could be the same with Larson. I don't know. That's going to be really interesting to see if that happens. If Ron Francis did give them the extra years and saying, we're not guaranteeing you, we're not trading you away, then awesome job, I say. Chara to the Edmonton Oilers. Chara already made it quite clear that he wasn't going to go to the West. So I'm pretty sure Chara is going to retire an Islander now. I don't think he'll be going anywhere else. But that's really interesting. I never thought about that, Jamie. It would be pretty cool, pretty smart if he signed a couple players to longer term deals than they would get anywhere else, with kind of an agreement that they may trade them before the end of the contract. And they appease him by giving him a longer contract nobody else was willing to give. At least then he's got security for his family for long term. And if Alexiak was available, even at his price point, I think there'd be a lot of interest. Josh Bailey has had such a poor... Josh Bailey does make sense for the Leafs because of the way he played with Tavares, but the money. I think in order to trade Josh Bailey to the Leafs, they would probably have to take back Ritchie, and the Oilers and Toronto would have to give a pick to go with it because he's been on the decline now for 2 years. And he probably would help Toronto pretty good, but they would have to give up. They would have to trade back Ritchie for money wise. In which case, if I'm Lamoriello, I'm going, well, I don't want Ritchie. So you're not giving me anything yet. If you're going to take Ritchie, if I'm going to take Ritchie back, you got to give me something. Makes sense, actually. I could see that happening. Get a second round pick for a guy that probably is taking up a roster spot right now. Take back Ritchie, but Ritchie's got 2 years, right? I don't even know if that would work. Somebody that's on a declining contract as well, and a second round pick, and maybe because Bailey's relationship with Tavares and what he can bring to a room, Josh Bailey is apparently pretty fantastic in a room. He can calm things down. In Toronto, it looks like they could use all that as they can get, because that's a really tough organization to play for. So not a bad idea. Look, we did all this and we hardly even talked about the games tonight. But I love talking about this stuff. Hey, how you doing, Rickett? Did you have fun on what was a absolute bloodbath weekend for hockey? Yeah, he makes $2 million for 2 years. A first Richie and Dermott. I don't think I'd do that for a. You got to take Richie for the next 2 years. Dermott, I have no use for. So basically, I did all that for a first. For a late first yet. I think, well, if they have their eyes on a defenseman in the offseason, maybe they could make room with Mayfield. Yeah, it wasn't the greatest signing, but you gotta admit they picked some pretty good pieces off the scrap heap to help them out there. The big one was Bunting. Bunting was the big one there, and for the most part, at least they didn't give like super long contracts. Richie for 2 years is, as it turns out, is pretty sour, but he was coming off a pretty decent year in Boston. Mayfield's not that bad. I don't think you want him in your, maybe not, maybe your 4-5, depending on what the other partner is. If you've got a weak 4-5, Mayfield's not going to be an answer for you. But if you got, like, he could play with Muzzin, right? I think that wouldn't be too bad of a combination. If you played with Muzzin. Muzzin makes everybody better, let's face it. He's an awesome defenseman. But a first Richie and Dermott, I got that stewing in my head. Because Bailey, they couldn't even give him away. Basically, that's Mayfield for Richie. I don't like Dermott. Yeah, but then okay, let's look at that. I want to look a little deeper into that one. Mayfield, oh, he's only making $1.5 million. Yeah, I doubt they're going to do that. That's a pretty cheap contract for Mayfield, actually. But they need help on defense, my gosh. That's a pretty cheap contract, and Islanders really need cheap contracts. But besides that, yeah, I'm going to be. I have the feeling that the Islanders are not going to go anywhere. I have a feeling that they're not going to do anything. They're just going to call it a bad year and try it again next year. Hopefully find some cap room. Getting rid of Bailey, or moving Bailey might be part of the equation, yeah. Because you can, what is he? I was just looking at the Islanders. What's his contract look like? Yeah, UFA in 2024. I sort of see what you're saying. If Bayfield, you get a first. Maybe that will work. Maybe that will work. You get rid of Bailey, you get rid of that contract. It's pretty huge. And you get a first back because you package Mayfield in. And then you can work on using that cap space. Dermott doesn't make much. You could probably trade him too. Yeah, that's not a bad deal. When you look at Bailey's contract, that's not a bad deal, actually. I don't know if, but then again, I don't think Toronto's going to take that much contract for the next 2 or 3 years. So that probably takes the deal right off the table right there. If Bailey had less of a contract, maybe. But he's at $5 million. He's at $5 million until 2024. So that pretty much takes that off the table for Toronto, I think. Toronto is in a tough spot. I could see them maybe moving. They're in a tough spot. Bluger's out 8 weeks. Yeah, that was the guy I thought it was. When he was talking about the Seattle player, Bluger got stapled by and he didn't mean to hit him in the head, but he did. Who are they playing? Oh, Dylan. He got rubbed out by Dylan and he smoked him in the head. But they believe that it wasn't of any intent at all. And when you're looking at it, maybe it wasn't because he was ahead of him and Bluger was coming this way. But I really have a hard time figuring how the referees could tell because when I saw the hit, it looked like he went up into his head. But and apparently the league's not even looking at it, so. He's undergoing surgery. Oh, he broke his jaw. Riley Smith is out now, too. Riley Smith is out tonight. Okay, well, Capitals got to win that game now. Oh, by the way, that's right. We got it. Jennifer, what's her name? Vancouver hired the first female assistant general manager ever. I forgot to mention that. Where is that? I just saw that. Halak and GM. Emily Castingay is the first assistant general manager, female. Remember we were just talking about that? I was wondering how long it was going to, like why. Emily, yeah. Oh, did you say that, Lauren? Sorry, I missed it. Emily's going to be the assistant general manager. Castingway. Yeah. Well, apparently they're still going to hire a manager, but they hired her as an assistant manager. So she's moving up. I'm sure there's got to be some brilliant female minds out there that could be a general manager by now. I mean, she was also she had another first. She's had several firsts. And I'm sure Rutherford's no dummy. He's been around long enough to know who's good. And I'm sure there's lots of females out there. Yeah, it's time to go. I'm just having fun. Got my voice back again. I was having fun, so I went a little long. All right, we'll be back tomorrow, guys. Don't forget, Off the Wall Hockey. I'm sure he'll be doing a stream tonight. Peyton's back on the mend. Peyton apparently got the COVID a little while ago, last week. And that's the reason why he wasn't doing streams. But he's apparently back now. So hopefully somewhere along the line here this week, I'll get back. And I'll be doing live streams in the evening too. Until tomorrow, we'll be back 1:30 or 3:30 Eastern time tomorrow again. This seems to be the time when everybody seems to is used to this time, and people come in and we talk and it's fun. So I'll see you next time. Have a great day, everybody. That's my full 42. Okay, bye.